as President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping prepare to meet in Lima, Peru for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Summit, the world is watching with bated breath. This isn't just a meeting between two global powerhouses. It's a high-stakes encounter that may help define the future of U.S.-China relations at a time when tensions have reached a boiling point. It's also likely to be Biden's final direct conversation with Xi before Donald Trump, with his famously hawkish stance on China, steps back into the White House. This APEC summit carries an air of urgency and historical weight. It's a diplomatic swan song for Biden's administration, a chance to press reset on key issues before Trump's transition potentially throws everything back up in the air. Biden's team has been vocal about using this moment to reinforce open communication between the U.S. and China, aiming for something that looks less like rivalry and more like restrained competition. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has emphasized the importance of keeping the lines of communication open, especially as global power dynamics are at their most fragile in recent memory. But Sullivan's tone is also one of cautious realism. There's a sense in Washington that while these high-level discussions may establish temporary stability, the fundamental competition between the U.S. and China is here to stay. For Biden, this meeting isn't about sweeping policy changes, but rather about reinforcing a sense of predictability. It's almost as if he's saying to Xi, "We might not agree on much, but let's at least agree on how we disagree." The topics expected to come up in this conversation read like a checklist of the world's biggest geopolitical flashpoints. China's support for Russia amidst the Ukraine war, the opioid crisis exacerbated by fentanyl shipments linked to Chinese suppliers, and cybersecurity threats. Xi, for his part, has a lot riding on this conversation too. China's recent moves, both economically and militarily, have shown that it's unwilling to back down from a growing role on the global stage. Xi will likely probe Biden on how Trump's return could affect U.S. policy in the Asia-Pacific region, a region China sees as its own sphere of influence. By seeking this clarity, Xi aims to prepare for what's coming, knowing full well that Trump has a history of shaking up international norms and alliances. Beyond the practicalities, there's an ideological dimension to this meeting. This isn't just about economics or defense, it's about two competing visions of the world order. For the U.S., it's a liberal, rules-based system that, for all its flaws, relies on established norms to keep the peace. For China, it's a system that can adapt to shifting powers and accommodate Beijing's rise without forcing it into a Western mold. Biden has made it clear that he's not looking to isolate China. This isn't a rerun of the Cold War. But he's also not prepared to ignore issues like Taiwan's security or China's growing presence in the South China Sea. Xi's agenda, however, is driven by a nationalistic vision of restoring China to a place of respect on the world stage, and he's been less willing to compromise on issues that touch on China's sovereignty or regional influence. Meanwhile, other nations, especially those in the Asia-Pacific region, are watching the Biden-Xi interaction closely. To countries like Japan, South Korea, and Australia, this meeting is about more than just the U.S. and China. It's about ensuring a balanced power dynamic in the region that doesn't force them to pick sides. The implications of this encounter could shape trade, security, and even climate policies across the globe. For leaders like Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who have worked to forge stronger ties with both superpowers, Biden and Xi's approach could mean the difference between a stable Pacific and one that's perpetually on the edge of conflict. The APEC summit is a unique chance for these nations to convey their interests and secure their place in an era defined by the U.S.-China relationship. While Biden and Xi shake hands in Lima, the specter of Trump's re-election hangs over the room. This adds a layer of uncertainty that both leaders will have to navigate carefully. Xi knows Trump's style well, having sparred with him on everything from tariffs to military drills. For Biden, this moment is about leaving behind a framework for his successor. Whether it's embraced or dismantled remains to be seen. The Lima meeting, therefore, isn't just a negotiation. It's an attempt to lay down tracks on a geopolitical landscape that's about to shift. It's a moment that will either stabilize a rocky relationship for the time being or foreshadow new tensions, that could set the world on a different path. As Biden and Xi face each other at the APEC summit, it's clear that this isn't just a routine diplomatic encounter. This is a conversation with stakes that go far beyond the room they'll meet in. It's about steering the world's two largest economies toward a relationship that can coexist amid growing rivalry and clashing ideologies. For now, the world watches and waits, hoping that this meeting can plant the seeds for a future where competition doesn't necessarily mean confrontation.